Let me introduce Ji-On Lee from the Department of Senior Friendly Industry, Korea Health Institute, Korea Health Industry, Development Institute.
Hi, my name is Ji-On Lee. I'm working for Korea Health Industry Development Institute. In most countries, population food intake is monitored with national survey periodically and used in the relevant policy development and impact evaluation. We have a nationwide year-round survey called K&Hands in Korea. And the food composition table has been the major source used in estimating the population nutrient intake from the food intake. Since the Korean Total Diet Study, KTDS was initiated on 2018 by the Ministry of Food and Drug Safety and continued for 5 years to secure 30 individual analysis samples for each food item and hazardous materials of interest. We attempt to get the information on some nutrients content in those prepared or cooked samples also. Until the third year of KTDS, we managed to obtain the contents of 5 minerals including calcium, phosphorus, sodium, potassium, and iron in the prepared or cooked representative foods. Those representative foods covers more than 92% of the population's total food intake. Then, population's mineral intake was estimated based on 2 different sources, KFCT and KFDA, using food intake data from the K&Hands. As shown on this slide, 2 estimates for each nutrient was comparable except iron. Using KFCT resulted in a much higher mean intake than using KTDS. This slide shows the top 10 food sources of each nutrient intake in the Korean population. In the case of iron, polished rice, our traditional staple food with mean intake over 120 grams per capita per day, was the top source based on KFCT, while it was only the 9th source based on KTDS. This discrepancy, 2 sources was potassium in the polished rice and coffee, and that resulted in the different rankings in terms of intake between 2 sources. This study revealed the need of more frequent review or analysis of nutrient content in food of interest, including staple foods. This is my presentation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. I don't know if there is any comment or short question in the room. No. From Bouelet Sama from Advanced Teachers Training College for Technical Education, Douala, Cameroon. So we hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm Isabelle Sandrine Bouelet Sama from Cameroon. And I want to present on occurrence and dietary risk assessment of mycotoxin in most consumed food in Cameroon. That is exploring current data to understand challenge. As we know, mycotoxin are naturally occurring toxins produced by certain mold that grow on a variety of different crop and foodstuff under certain circumstances during harvesting, handling, storage. As recently highlighted by some authors, agricultural and manufacturing practices in Cameroon are often very suitable to mold proliferation and mycotoxin production. Thus, this paper aimed at providing an overview of the occurrence of mycotoxin in food commodity in Cameroon, then give a picture of human dietary exposure, and then possible scenario for not adopting good practices. So to achieve this, we first the data, and then after selecting the, we use some keyword, of course, to select that data. So we found that about 100 documents were selected of 56 papers were definitely selected. The dietary exposure were used. We used two sources: the Canned Food Balance and the TDS carried out in 2008. As a result, already report the presence of aflatoxin, fuminosin, etc. Also, ochratoxin in dry food, in maize, in bean, in nuts, and spice also. We also reported in table 1 all the most important data that pose some problem. And we have a specific case that we resolved with the pepper, the Peppenja pepper. We know that Penja pepper is among the best pepper in the world. It is much appreciated by Tough Chip, and the first product to obtain the protected geographical indication in sub-Saharan Africa. Because of poor practice, this pepper production is at risk of many plant disease. So we have some the figure 2 and 3 that have illustrated that. To conclude that, we can say that few data exist in mycotoxin in Cameroon. Only 25 studies from 14 authors have been found. And the sources of exposure are maize, cassava, that are major source of exposure. That should be prioritized, followed by bean and spices. So we can say at the end that there is still a lot to do in terms of risk assessment and data exposure in Cameroon. Thank you.
So thank you very much for this presentation. Any question on the chat now in the room or any comment? Not at all. So my question will be what's next? Now with your results, what do you plan to study now?
Now we are supposed to draw other studies because even for children, we don't have a really, we don't have I don't know what to say. We don't have enough data to characterize for the children, and we are supposed to do other studies. But for that, we need some funding. We are trying to search funding to make another study about that. But it's a real problem in Cameroon. We don't have enough studies on risk assessment and on mycotoxin dietary exposure.
Okay, thank you very much. A question, Jean-Charles.
No, it's not a question. It's more a comment or a reaction. You are saying you don't have enough risk assessment or exposure assessment to mycotoxin in Cameroon. I just want to recall that we did at FAO level with the support of Pasteur Cameroun, a very huge study describing all the mycotoxin presence, exposure, and risk assessment. Still only 2 years published in the Lancet. So you can find already a lot of information from your country, for sure, from mycotoxin or other kind of contaminants.
Yes, I think that I agree with that, but we still need to have how to say it, continuous assessment. Of course, we cannot stop at that level. Of course, those that I have the like in Engloblic, I have. We still need studies to have more. I don't know how to say it. Anyway, I think we still have to do more studies on that, but we have data, of course, but we have to continue on that.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Maybe I have to precise that all the posters will be available soon on the cloud, and I think we will receive an email with the information.
Okay,
Is
thank
there...
you.
Sorry?
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any last, yes, a question or comment?
Thank you so much. As part of, let's say, risk characterization, so the dissemination of these results and interpretation of these results to the decision maker. So, as a discussion, what shall we do as a first step in the results of this total diet study? Big question.
For every TDS maker here in the room.
Because the continuous work collecting data. So when the time we stop and rethink about our decisions, decide and manage these things, release some legislations. So what is the time for it?
The time, please.
The time for what, sorry?
I mean the continuous work for total diet study. So after you know, for the risk assessment, but we have a risk management. So who translate these data, margin of exposure and all of this stuff to the decision maker to issue a legislation?
Yes, that is a big problem here in Cameroon. We have studies. Yes, it's not always easy to connect. Yeah, okay. You want to say something? You want? I see you want to say something.
I don't know if the question from our colleague was to you or more to the assembly.
So for the assembly, yes.
So I was just aware that maybe you don't need to respond alone on this question.
Okay, thanks.
In term of transfer, of course, you need to have, it depends of your national organization, but if you do have a risk assessor in one side, you need to send or to provide a recommendation or communication to your risk managers. Once it's done, it's not on the end of the risk assessor, it's on the end of the risk manager to implement, if there is a need to implement legislation or measure control or other kind of risk management things. And the delay, of course, the delay is also very linked to the organization you have at national level. It could be quick, it could be not quick, it depends it depends of the countries. Huh?
I'm thinking
I can have that. It's not only we have study, we have a result, but it's not always ready to connect to the decision maker. And sometimes, as you say, it's time to have the result with that interaction. So it's not easy for searcher to connect with the decision maker. Of course, we have publication, but
the other point I would like to add, just once the decision maker take the recommendation of risk assessor through total diet study, then when the time to revise these decisions based on total diet study. So the continuous work, I think it's continuous work to revise these legislations or decision making regarding based on total diet study. So I don't know, just open question to discuss about it, whether there is a high-level committee in the country, for example, it is a risk management committee or risk analysis committee discussing these results.
Luc, want?
Thank you, everyone. I think there is an underlying message in the question, which I think refers to the risk analysis and the fact that it is supposed to be a sort of a cycle between the risk assessment and the risk assessment and the risk management. Sorry. And a total diet study can be a very good tool to assess the impact of an intervention, which can have been decided or implemented following a risk assessment. So I think it is a good way to consider the total diet study method as a public health tool, as periodically assess the impact of actions taken by policymakers. I think this is what is implied. Thank you.
Maybe I can add as an example the French example, not only with our total diet studies, but with the different evaluations and the total diet studies. We had observed that for something like 20 years, we have a decrease in dioxin and PCB exposure, dietary exposure. So we have a decrease in the environmental levels, in the food contamination, but also in the dietary exposure. And we have the same trend in the decrease of the biomonitoring level of dioxin and PCBs, and that illustrates the reality and the efficiency of the action of the regulation on dioxin and PCBs in France. So, okay. Is there any other comment in the room, in the chat? No. So we have the last. Do we have the last poster presentation? Yeah.
And maybe to add, because we had also a question in terms of delay. What could be the good delay? There is no specific good delay. You can do like the presentation from Robert, to follow every year and to have just a picture every 5 years, every 10 years. The most important is to have a picture and try to have trends where you can follow effectively the impact of regulation or any kind of risk management measure which are taken at your national level.
So thank you, and thanks again to Bouelet and Sama for your poster presentation. And so now we have the last poster presentation. The technical problem is solved. So let's welcome Obadina Adewale from Department of Food Science and Technology, Federal University of Agriculture in Nigeria, who is talking about fats in food.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon to the scientists and the people there in Germany to listen to what I put together here, that is on partial hydrogenation and trans fatty acid in food, the health implication. Partially hydrogenated oil contains trans fat acid, which normally has been confirmed to raise cholesterol and result in health implications. Trans fat, a kind of unsaturated fatty acid that is normally found in partially hydrogenated fats, and this has been known to processing, most especially in the restaurants and snack shops and vendors. This type of fat being used in food has been associated with risks such as that cancer, and camera. We have countries in developed world that have banned the use of partially hydrogenated oils in food processing, and this has really to reduce the health implication among their citizens. But there is still a challenge in developing countries, especially Africa and Asia. We still have reports showing that many of the food that fat is used in processing contains these unhealthy trans fats in the food. So there is need for immediate by countries, especially Africa, to look into the use of partially hydrogenated fats in food that women consume. And it was an idea that WHO tried to initiate. So I just want to say that there's need for developing countries to look into this aspect of food processing. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I'm sorry, here in the room the sound was not very fine, so we were not able to hear all you said. But again, the poster will be available very soon in the cloud, so we'll be able to read it carefully. Is there any question or comments? No. Okay, so thank you again for your presentation, and I think that we can conclude this afternoon session.